Welcome all. I'm Sarah Roeder with AFMA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, a nonprofit since 1879 serving our military community to be the provider of financial solutions. And as the Director of Partnership and Member Engagement, I get to talk with individuals, organizations, government representatives about what they are doing to help service members, military spouses, veterans, and the community at large. And today we're talking about the PACT Act, what you need to know, whether you're a service member, a veteran, a military, or a surviving spouse. And we're speaking directly with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Steve Miska is the Transitional Executive Director for PACT Act. He's also a retired Army colonel who has taught economics at West Point. He's the author of a book, Baghdad Underground Railroad, and he has a real passion for helping others and gets to use that every day. So thank you, Steve, so much for being here.
Sarah, it's an honor to join you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we are going to talk all things PACT Act, but before we do, I would love to know, how did you go from being a retired Army colonel to working at the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Sure. And I also would like to say, I know I'm a veteran, but I also would like to offer that I am the brother of a veteran. I am the son of a Vietnam veteran, the nephew of a Vietnam era veteran. And so we've got service in our family. And so that's something that has always been a call to serve for me. And, my mom was a nurse for decades, and her service in the community has always been something that I have sought to emulate. And so as a result, after 25 years in the Army Infantry, I retired and said I'm never going back to work for government again, intentionally let my security clearance lapse, and moved to Southern California, where I was doing nonprofit work, helping a lot of nonprofits, mainly in the vulnerable refugee space. And many of those refugees were Iraqis, but then I got asked to help with Afghanistan around the withdrawal, and connected with a lot of Vietnam veterans at that time as well. We were trying to learn the lessons of Vietnam and that withdrawal and how it impacted the boat people and others. And as a result, I reached out to the VA because I worked with the secretary and the deputy secretary previously as director for Iraq on the National Security Council. And I informed them that this Afghanistan withdrawal was going to be a big deal in the veteran community, that the fallout around it, particularly around moral injury, because we serve alongside of our Iraqi or Afghan counterparts, and we don't want to leave anybody behind. And so a lot of veterans were mobilizing at the time, and I let the secretary know that we needed some help from VA as a result. And to his credit, he leaned in and started trying to get the mental health services and other support that veterans might need. And as a result, he said, now I need a favor from you. I need some help with this thing called the PACT Act. And I said, what? I don't even know what that is. And I knew what it was, but I didn't, fully understand how comprehensive the law would be, how complex it would be in many ways. And so after, I guess I didn't say no right away, but I didn't give the answer that he was looking for. And after we negotiated, I agreed to deploy to Washington, D.C. for 3 years and help with the implementation of this new law that's been so, life-changing for so many veterans, so many survivors. And it's been an honor to be able to serve for the last couple of years.
That's amazing. I really appreciate you giving us a little bit of background personally about your kind of call to serve and your family, as well as how you found your way to the VA and to this thing called the PACT Act, right? So we are going to dive into some questions and hear them directly from you. If you are new here as an audience member to our AFMA Lives, please know you are muted, so we cannot hear you. Hopefully you can hear us. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those into the comment sections. We actually have some awesome VA staff members who are on hand to help answer that. And I might get to ask Steve directly. So hopefully that lets everybody know kind of how we're going to proceed. So let's dive in. Let's talk about the importance of the PACT Act for our service members and our veterans, and what exactly are the key benefits for them?
Sure. So the PACT Act is the largest expansion in VA healthcare and benefits in over a generation. I attribute it, to a tremendous amount of advocacy that really started shortly after Vietnam. And so it's decades of advocacy that have brought together this very massive piece of legislation that includes a lot of different components. But I want to boil it down to some of its essence for members of the audience. It mainly applies to Vietnam veterans, Gulf War veterans, and post 9/11 veterans, but not exclusively. And there's a component of it called toxic exposure risk activity, which we have been involved in trying to bring more presumptive benefits, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that, to veterans outside of those cohorts as well. So one of the game-changing aspects of the law is this nature of it added hundreds of new conditions that VA is able to consider presumptive, meaning if you have that condition and you are a veteran of those conflicts, you no longer need to prove that the reason you have that condition is due to your service. We can automatically assume that. And so it makes the filing a claim much easier as a result. And so that's on the benefit side. On the healthcare side, we've really been able to open the door to millions of veterans who are now potentially eligible for benefits as a result of the PACT Act. Previous to the PACT Act, we've got about 18 million veterans total in the country. Only 9 million of those veterans had any relationship with VA. And PACT has opened the aperture to millions more. So not only that, but it's also enabled veterans who are already in the system to either get better healthcare coverage by moving up in their priority group, we call it on the healthcare side, or get increased benefits as a result. And since we started implementing PACT about a year and a half ago in March of 2023, we started producing a dashboard that displays all of those metrics. And it's a public dashboard, and it shows the different benefits, the people who have come in for healthcare, and how we've been doing. And we've wanted to be very transparent with all of our stakeholders and demonstrate how collaborative we're being and how veteran-centric and focused we are. And so that's in a nutshell the PACT Act.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think that transparency is super important for our service members and for veterans and spouses as they kind of go through and understand the PACT Act and what it is and how it's there to help. And so when we talk about helping, how can veterans kind of access those PACT Act benefits? How do they get to them?
So there are a lot of different ways to get help, and I think it depends on the individual. If you're like me and you might struggle with technology, for example, or get easily frustrated by it, I prefer to have somebody hold my hand And so I would recommend reaching out to a veteran service organization that helps with filing claims. You can walk into a regional office of our Veterans Benefits Administration and reach one of the public contact centers where they take walk-ins. You can make an appointment and go visit and get assistance that way. You can go online if you're more brave than I am and just file a claim online. And I've had people tell me that they have gotten results of their claim within weeks, which is historically not been the case for those of you who have ever filed a claim before. And so we've been able to, by virtue of presumptives, get quicker, by virtue of automation that we have driven into the claims processing side of things, get more efficient. And so we continue to try to work in that space. And then the last thing I would say is on the healthcare side, one other means to get assistance, you can always call us at VA. We have a 24/7, 1-800 My VA 411. I'll have somebody drop it in the chat so you have that toll-free number. That is our tier 1 contact center. And regardless of what your question is, they will help you find the right subject matter expert to answer your question. To the healthcare side, you can always walk into one of the hospitals across the country and apply. Because of PACT, you no longer have to have filed a claim in advance. You can just walk in and apply for healthcare if you're in those eligible cohorts, or if you feel like you were exposed to a toxic exposure of some kind during your time in service.
Wow, that's a huge change as well as benefit. It actually ties right into, since we're talking about healthcare, we had a great question come in about what if a veteran's not exhibiting any symptoms, should they still go in and register?
That is a great question. My opinion is yes. 100%, because VA healthcare is a holistic healthcare system. It's really hard to find that in the civilian sector. You get a lot of boutique healthcare out in the privatized space. What we try to do is treat the whole person for whole health. And that means everything, and it's up to you, obviously, but if you want a class on better sleep habits, if you want a class on diet and exercise and how that might benefit you, we've got it at VA, and we are happy to provide it to veterans inside the system. But the intent of that whole health is to be proactive, right? No healthcare providers are going to have the level of cultural competency that VA healthcare providers have for veterans. A third of the VA are veterans like me. I'm not a doc, so I can't help you out there, but we have plenty of former military who now are healthcare providers inside the VA system, and they understand veterans. We veterans, my wife tells me all the time, I'm a complicated case, right? We come with a portfolio of issues. And so what better way to address complex cases than to have healthcare providers who are attuned to that? And so I would highly recommend anybody who's eligible. If you're not sure if you're eligible, give us a call. We'll try to figure it out.
Yeah. And you mentioned that there is that 1-800 number that can triage 24/7 to say, this is where you need to go. So even if you don't know where to start, they can help you get to where you need to go and start the process, which is amazing. So I myself am a military spouse, and I often think, okay, what happens when my veteran, passes away, or his health care, something like that is needed? So how does the PACT Act impact military families, the family themselves?
So first, Sarah, thank you for your service. I'm sure you don't hear that a lot, but I feel strongly about how important it is for our family members who go through the trials and tribulations of deployments and just time in service. It's a level of stress that a lot of other people don't understand. And so thank you. And it's a great question. The PACT Act comes with potential benefits for survivors as well. And that's why a lot of times I'll get a question, I'm 100% service disabled veteran already. Why should I apply for PACT benefits? Well, if you end up passing away for some cancer that is already considered presumptive by the PACT Act, and you have gotten service connected for that, your survivor is eligible for benefits as a result. Dependency and Indemnity compensation, we call it DIC, and it's a portion of your disability compensation. Your survivors can continue to receive that. So it really is peace of mind for you, the veteran, to know that your family will be taken care of if you're no longer with us. And it's so important. And I'm really grateful for you asking the question, because survivors many times are a really difficult demographic for us to reach. And so we always ask people, if you know of any survivors out there, please help us get in touch with them. If they might be eligible, we'd love to make sure they understand that and can apply for their benefits.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it goes back to kind of that importance of getting registered. Maybe even if you aren't experiencing any health issues now, getting into the system, right? To give you, like you said, peace of mind, which is priceless in a lot of cases. So I really appreciate you kind of talking about that and addressing the surviving spouses. So we've had a couple questions come in that I would love to be able to ask you. One of them that has been mentioned, and here at AFMA, we reached out to our membership. We gave them the opportunity to give a list and say, hey, what could you ask if you could ask somebody from the VA questions about PACT Act? And so some of the questions that came in is, one is, will PACT Act be fully funded by Congress in 2025 for next year? What does that look like?
Sure. It's a great question. So the bottom line is veteran issues in general are one of the few remaining issues, I think, in our country that do generate a high degree of bipartisan support. And so PACT was fully funded for this year. It is fully funded from a benefits perspective for next year. We have identified to Congress that we believe we are short on the healthcare side. And so we're currently working with the Hill to allow them to practice their constitutional oversight responsibilities to determine that we're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's on that budget request. The bottom line is, though, VA healthcare in general is shielded from some of the budgetary pressures that most other departments in government are not. Meaning, even when there is some sort of contingency, ongoing resolution to fund the government without a budget in place, the healthcare side is able to continue on because Congress has decided not to allow that to be impacted, veteran healthcare, just because they can't agree on what the budget should be for the next year. So I'm very confident that 2025, we are in good shape. If we do not get the supplemental that we've asked for, we're currently communicating what the potential ramifications would be and where we might need to prioritize. But PACT has been extremely successful. And so part of the reason we had to go back and ask for more money this year on the benefits side and next year on the healthcare side is because we have run the largest outreach campaign in VA history for the last 2 years going, we have screened 5.8 million veterans for toxic exposure. We have gotten approved over 1.1 million claims for toxic exposure. Over 11,000 of those claims are survivor claims. And so we've just been getting more benefits to more veterans than ever before. And these are benefits that veterans have earned and deserve. And we believe we're going to do our best to connect to every veteran we possibly can, every survivor. And if we do that and we need to ask Congress for more money, then that's our job to do, and we'll do that too.
Yeah, that's great. Really there to advocate, right, for the families and say, hey, we need more so that we can do more. And your outreach is wonderful. I think, we're getting lots of comments in the section about kind of that outreach and questions about it and what to do. One of the a question I would like to ask is, we had several people ask about, what if I registered and I was maybe denied for a benefit, or I was at a 0% rating and I don't think that that's where I should be? What's kind of your guidance to those people as they go forward?
Sure. And so historically, denials have been very high on claims. And I would just note that for PACT benefits, we have, and we've been producing these statistics, like I mentioned, for over a year and a half now. We've been at 75% approval rating for those claims, which is very high. Now, if you got denied and you think it was done wrong, then you can always ask for another review, and it can be appealed inside of the Veteran Benefits Administration. If you did it on your own, or you didn't get the help of a veteran service organization, I would recommend that as a next step. Go talk to a veteran service officer and ask if maybe there was something missing from your packet, if there's another approach you could take. And then the last thing is, I'll address the 0% rating, right? And a lot of times you might be a 50% service disabled veteran or something, but you've got several contentions that are rated at 0%. That's actually a good thing, because a 0% rating means that VA has acknowledged that condition being service connected. And so let's say, like we spoke about, if you were to pass away from that condition, right, then your survivor would be eligible for potential benefits there, whatever the other benefits were that you were receiving. The other thing is that condition can worsen and start impacting your quality of life in a more substantial way. You could come back and reapply, and that could get upgraded from 0% to some level of compensation as a result of that condition. And then the other point I'd make about a 0% rating is, let's say hypertension is one that comes up quite frequently. I got rated at a 0%, probably because you're able to maintain your quality of life, maybe by taking blood pressure meds. And so it's correctable. But if you develop a secondary condition that is as a result of hypertension, that secondary condition is now automatically service connected because your hypertension is service connected. So it's a good thing in general, even if it's a 0% rating.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. And a couple of, as I was listening very intently, key takeaways, because again, military spouse, and sometimes I have to push my veteran to do things.
I want to talk about that point.
We will talk about that. Getting a service organization can really help you in understanding what might need to be provided getting registered, even if you're not having symptoms, gets you into the system, gets you under PACT, lets them know kind of what's happening health-wise, and also provides for your survivors. Funny, you should say you want to talk about that. A question did come in that said, what happens if I know somebody that needs to do this, and they won't do it? What do you advise? What do you do?
So, yeah, this is a really good question. I'll go back to my statement about we veterans being complicated cases, right? Sometimes we might be stubborn. And so it is not unusual for a daughter or a son or a niece or a spouse to have to twist some elbows to get the veteran to take care of themselves, right? And so that's why we use multiple means of communication. We use multi-channel communication, right? Where we've gotten to the point where we can directly email a veteran, directly text that veteran to let them know, even if they're not affiliated with us, just let them know, hey, you might be eligible. We're having an event in your area. Why don't you stop by and check us out? But also, we still use snail mail. And I always like that because it might seem antiquated, but the spouse isn't seeing that text many times that that veteran's getting. But when she gets that letter and opens it up and says, hey, VA is saying you might be eligible for this. What are you doing about it? You know, it's just one more means to have a family approach to helping the veterans realize that it's not just about them, right? And many times I hear, and I have done this, and so I'm not, casting stones. I don't want to take a slot from somebody. Somebody else needs it more than I do,
Right.
right? Don't allow that to be the excuse, because VA healthcare is going to be the best. Number one, it's the most affordable. It's going to be the best healthcare you can get. We are consistently ranked above private sector healthcare facilities in terms of quality of care and patient satisfaction. And that's not us ranking it. That's the CMS star ratings. And they just started rating VA hospitals 2 years ago, and we're just knocking it out of the park every time from third-party perspective. So we train 70% of the providers in the country. They go through the VA healthcare system at some point to get the training that allows them to go off and be a doctor or a nurse somewhere else. So that would be my offering on that note.
That's wonderful. I also, worked. I've been with AFMA for 14 years now, and had the pleasure of working in our member benefits and our survivor assistance department. And you hit on the nail on the head on something, in that when I would talk with service members who would say, "But I want to keep the slot for somebody else," I would say, "But what about your spouse or your child?" Right? If not for you, if not because of for you, do it for your surviving spouse. Make their life a little bit easier if that time should come, or when that time should come. And a lot of times that resonates a little bit in that sense. But we have talked a lot of information today, and everybody who's joining, so we've got lots of questions about where is this going to be. This recording will be, of course, on our AFMA LinkedIn Live page and be on YouTube. We will also have an AFMA Learning Hub article, which will have the PACT 101 slide in it. But Steve, for those who are listening and say, okay, what is my call to action here? I need to do something. Where can they go to do that online?
Sure. So we'll definitely drop this in the chat if my colleagues have not, or I've seen them dropping links and phone numbers and stuff in the chat as we go along. You can always go to va.gov/PACT to learn more information. You can call the 1-800 number I mentioned, 1-800-MY-VA-411. There it is popping up on the screen. You can walk into a VA facility to get more questions answered and talk directly to a healthcare provider or a benefits specialist who can help you You can go to one of our events. We have been hosting hundreds and hundreds of events around the country in person. We try to do what we call a one VA experience rather than veterans having to navigate our bureaucracy. We bring all of our suite of services to the veteran. So we can have providers there doing toxic exposure screening right there on site. You can get help filing a claim right there. We a lot of times try to bring our National Cemetery Administration personnel with us so that they're there to talk about end of life planning and your benefits that VA offer. Most people don't even know the National Cemetery Administration is part of the VA. It's our smallest component, but such an important one. And they routinely get the highest customer satisfaction ratings of any organization, not even just in government, but even in the private sector. We take that very seriously at VA, and they are just tremendous public servants to help families in a time of deep loss and to do it in a way that honors that veteran service. So those are some ideas, but I'm happy to chat on other ways as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's a wonderful list. The takeaway I just heard is there's a multitude of ways to get into the VA system, to get registered with the PACT Act, to make sure that you are getting all of the benefits and entitlements you deserve, as well as your family. And so we have, and your team, Steve, has done an amazing job. They are dropping all kinds of things into the comment section. So for anybody who is afraid you might miss that, don't worry. All those comments will be listed in the live. So whatever platform that you've been watching this on, you'll be able to see all those comments. You'll be able to get all of those links. And again, this will stay, forever to be watched digitally on YouTube or on our AFMA channel. But I want to thank you so much, Steve, for your time today, for your service, for your family service, but for your passion for what you're doing for these veterans and their families. So thank you so much for joining
thank
today.
you, Sarah. It's an honor to be here. And I saw General Miska put a comment in that, so I really appreciate any time I get to collaborate with him and the leadership of your great team. I'm happy to do so. So it's been an honor.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, I am Sarah Roeder, and that will wrap up our AFMA Live for today. If you would like more information about AFMA and our financial readiness programs within the military community, please connect with me. You can go right here on the QR code and sign up for a subscription. We'll drop all this in the comments as well. And if you're interested, December 3rd at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll be talking with a specialist about TRICARE open enrollment for veterans, for those retirees, about what you need to know for TRICARE open enrollment. So hopefully you can join then. But otherwise, I thank you for joining today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye now.